Has this ever happened to you? Your favorite YouTuber starts selling LUTs so that your footage can look just like theirs. All excited, you whip out your credit card, download them, throw them on your timeline, and your footage kind of looks bad. In this video, I'm going to show you a foolproof step-by-step guide on how to never mess up your color grading ever again. Dial in your settings. This usually means shooting in a log or flat color profile. Now, I shoot on Sony, so when I'm creating content, I choose to shoot in S-Log3. This gives me the most dynamic range and editing bandwidth. But if you are on Canon or Lumix or Nikon, your flat color profile is probably called something else. I also choose to shoot in the S-Gamut 3 Cine color profile, as well as capture my footage in 10-bit 422. By setting it to 10-bit 422, I basically ensured that I'm capturing as much of the color information as possible, which will give me a lot of latitude in the edit. Now hold on there. You can't just whip out your camera and start shooting willy-nilly once you've set your color profile. You have to dial in the proper exposure settings as well. For S-Log3, that means shooting 1.3 stops overexposed. Now, some of you might be sitting there going, but Bobby, what does that even mean? Great question. You see that little MM on your camera screen there? That is going to be your multimetering. If it's at 0, that means your image is perfectly exposed. You want to raise up your ISO or increase your lighting to the point that says plus 1.3. This will allow you to darken your image in post while still preserving all the shadows and highlights in your content. Okay, now we can start shooting. So you've captured your footage, imported it into Premiere Pro, threw it on your timeline, ran over to the color tab, grabbed yourself a LUT, threw it on the footage, and you never want to apply a LUT directly to the footage that you're looking to color grade. Instead, in Premiere Pro, we're gonna be using adjustment layers. But that doesn't really fix the problem overall because you still want to convert your footage first. Here's what I mean. This is a step that I would say 80% of creators miss when they're color grading for the first time, and it's extremely important. You first need to download a conversion LUT. In this case, we're shooting with Sony, so head on over to Sony and download their S-Log to Rec 709 conversion LUT. If you're shooting Canon, Panasonic, Nikon, go to their website, grab their factory conversion LUT as well, and this is how we're going to use it. Head on over to your timeline, create an adjustment layer, and we're going to drop our conversion LUT on top. Now, as you can see, this has added a lot of saturation to the image. It almost looks like what you'd think the image should look like straight out of camera. The reason for that is because we've converted from a log color space to a Rec 709. Comment down below if you want a video really getting into the nitty-gritty on color space, bit depth, and all those fun little intricacies. Now on this first adjustment layer is where we're going to affect all of our basic edits from. That's going to be exposure, a little bit of contrast, bring up the shadows, bring down the highlights, just very minimal tweaks and changes to the overall clip. Now, once all of that's been done, you can finally start color grading. We're going to create a second adjustment layer and drop that on top of the one we just created. So you have adjustment layer on top, an adjustment layer underneath it where we've affected all of our exposure, highlights, shadows, tweaks, and then your clip underneath. Now on this top adjustment layer is where we're actually going to use our LUT, whether that is the LUT that you spent a bunch of money on from your favorite YouTuber or any of the ones that Adobe packs into the color tab here. We're gonna go through, pick a LUT, and we're gonna lower the intensity slider down to about 35-40. If you keep it at full blast at 100, your footage is gonna look terrible. Every single YouTuber, filmmaker, vlogger that you know doesn't use their video LUTs at 100%. They're meant to be used at a little bit lower to kind of just give the subtle feel of what you want your film to look like. A great example of this is the Matrix movies. Yes, there is green everywhere, but the skin tones are still preserved, and the green is used sparingly throughout the shadows and highlights, so you get the idea of what they're going for without being overwhelming in your face and having everybody look like the Hulk. All right, so you've got your footage, you've got your two adjustment layers, now it's time to export. Head on over to the export tab and you're good to go. Psych, not really, because if you're a Premiere Pro editor, there is one more crucial step that if you don't do will have you banging your head against the wall for hours trying to figure out why. We need to now export with another LUT, and it's going to be a gamma correction LUT. Link down below to that LUT over on Adobe's website. Now, again, this is only a Premiere Pro issue. If you're a Final Cut editor, you can just export your footage. Hallelujah, cheers, enjoy your clip. But if you're in Premiere, Premiere does this thing for broadcast standards that is very complicated, but essentially desaturates your footage even if you've color graded it. So if you don't add this gamma LUT before you export, your footage won't match up. It'll look much more washed out. The colors will be slightly different. So here you go. You download the LUT from Adobe, you go into your export settings, you scroll down, you choose export with LUT, and poof, there you go. Will it look a little more saturated in the preview window? Yes, but once you export it and watch it back on your screen, it will look exactly how it did on your timeline. If you're really going balls to the wall, you can also render at maximum bit depth. This will also preserve a lot of your colors and video fidelity as well, but if you're just doing run and gun type stuff, this won't really move the needle all that much. So if you don't click it, it's not the end of the world if you're publishing just to YouTube. But there you go, 3 easy steps. Make sure you're capturing your content correctly. Make sure you're converting it to a Rec 709 color space. Obviously, you don't want to turn your LUTs up to 100%. Keep it subtle. Use it sparingly. And remember, if you're a Premiere Pro user, to add the gamma LUT when you export. Do all of these steps correctly, and I promise you, color grading will A, seem a lot less scary, and B, you won't feel so bad that those LUTs you just bought don't look exactly how you thought they would. Leave a comment down below if there's any other questions you have about color grading, any other videos or pieces of this you'd like me to go more in depth with. Take care of yourselves, and always be creating.